Hey young friends, Dr. Bill here. I am always glad when you choose to spend just a few moments with me. You may recall that for the last several weeks we have been talking about Jesus' disciples. We've been focusing on the first 12 disciples that he called to see what we can learn from them and how they can be an example for us, either to tell us what to do or what not to do. Today we're going to focus on one of the lesser known disciples, a man named Philip. We don't have a lot of material about Philip. The four Gospels, all of them mention him, but it's the Gospel of John that gives us the most information about this disciple. It begins when Jesus calls him. According to John, Jesus had called Andrew and Peter to be his disciples. And then it says that Jesus made his way to the town of Bethsaida in Galilee, and he found Philip, meaning somehow, some way, Jesus was searching for him. And so as soon as Jesus found him and said to him, "Follow me," Philip immediately obeyed. He then went to his friend Nathanael and said, "Hey, we have found the Messiah." And even though Nathanael was a little skeptical, Philip said, "Hey, come and see, come and find out." And Nathanael did, and he became one of Jesus' disciples. Well, despite that good start, Philip doesn't fare as well throughout the rest of the gospel. There's an episode in John where Jesus feeds the multitude. A crowd of people, a lot of people have been following him for some time, and Jesus becomes concerned about their welfare. And so he asks Philip a question, sort of to kind of test his understanding. And he says to Philip, "Hey, where are we going to find enough money to feed all of these people? Where are we going to find enough money to buy enough food for all of these folks?" Well, Philip was thinking very pragmatically, practically, and he's made an estimate. He said, "Hey, it would take 6 months of wages to feed all of these people." Well, that wasn't the answer Jesus was looking for. He was hopeful that Philip would somehow recognize that Jesus himself had the power to provide in the most difficult of circumstances. Philip didn't get it. Later on in the gospel, Jesus utters these wonderful words when he says to his disciples, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Wow, powerful statement. Well, still, it's a little bit of a reach for Philip to understand. And so he says to Jesus, kind of out of exasperation, he said, "Look, why don't you just show us the Father? Why don't you just show us God, and that will be enough?" Philip missed recognizing that Jesus was indeed God in the flesh. He failed to recognize that the Father was fully expressed in everything Jesus taught and in everything Jesus did. Philip just couldn't quite figure out what to make of Jesus and know exactly who he was. Now, there's a couple of lessons that are really important to us from this disciple. First, as I mentioned at the outset, a good beginning does not guarantee a good ending. Just because we start well doesn't mean that we're always going to finish well. In between a good start and a good ending, there's a lot of work. And Philip, apparently, even though he started well, he was a little slow in catching up and figuring out how he was going to make his life truly what Jesus wanted him to make of it. He just had a limited bit of understanding and had to learn the lesson that he had to keep at it to be a faithful follower. And that's the truth for us. We may start well, but the truth is we don't get it all the time. But we have to keep at it. We have to keep working so that our good beginning turns into a good ending. And the second lesson is this. For all of his lack of understanding, Philip still remained a disciple. Even though he didn't give the right answers to the questions Jesus asked, Jesus didn't kick him out of the circle of the 12. He understood that Philip really was a disciple. He was a learner, a student. And Philip was still learning. He was still trying to get a hold of what it was that Jesus was about and what that meant for him in terms of following Jesus. The encouraging thing for me there is that we don't always have to get it right all the time. The truth is, our faith is like Philip's. We have moments where we shine, we do really well, and then we have moments where we don't do as well. We kind of fall off the grid. Well, that's the way we live, and Philip is kind of our representative there. We don't always have to get it right all the time. Well, that'll do it for today. As always, should you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me. In the meantime, I hope that things are going extremely well for you, and I wish you nothing but God's very best. Take care. Bye-bye.